What's up? Welcome to Chat It Up. Greg Larnard and Garrett Tolley. Hey, we got the rest of the crew here, but we have a little bit of a different setup for y'all today. We do have a fantastic guest, Max Chadwick, Pro Football Focus college football analyst, co-host of the PFF College Football Show, PFF's mock draft simulator going on right now. Be sure to head over to pff.com/mock to use PFF's mock draft simulator, make trades, earn rewards, and choose your favorite prospects in the 2024 NFL draft by using PFF's mock draft simulator at pff.com/mock. What is up, Max? I'm really happy to have you here today and really excited to talk some college football with you as the draft is right around the corner. So how are you, my friend?
I'm doing outstanding, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, it's kind of Christmas for me this week. You know, I'm a huge college football guy, obviously. I still love the NFL as well, and the NFL draft is like the perfect marriage between college football and the NFL. I think it's the best sporting event of the year. So I truly, this is my favorite week of the year that we have right now. So I'm pumped to talk to you guys.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to kick it off here. And then my man Garrett to my right here has he's a Commanders fan. So he's going to ask you the second question. But I'll kick it off with the number one team from the division that I care most about, the NFC North. I am a Green Bay Packers fan. But I have to ask you about the Chicago Bears first and foremost. They have the number one overall pick. It's basically a lock that Caleb Williams is going to go there. I know they've got some really good weapons there now with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. But what do you think of Caleb Williams? Because I feel like I've heard some different mixed reviews of, hey, this guy's incredible. Obviously won the Heisman Trophy a couple of years ago, and he's a can't-miss prospect. So is he another can't-miss prospect at quarterback, or is he another failed experiment at quarterback for the Chicago Bears, in your opinion?
Well, I honestly, I think the Bears, I tweeted this today, actually, because I saw an article got posted saying, oh, we're worried about the Bears and how they're going to nurture Caleb Williams. And I was like, I don't know about that. I can't remember the last time a number one overall pick walked into a better situation than what Chicago has right now. Like you mentioned, they have great weapons there. The O-line they're really building up really well. Defense was great last year. I mean, you got to remember, this wasn't the worst team in the NFL last year. This was the ninth worst team in the NFL. So I think it's possible, and I don't know impossible. I think it should be expected that they make the playoffs next year as a wild card team potentially. So I think Caleb Williams is special. Honestly, you look at the best quarterback prospects of the last decade and a half, probably. I would probably put Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence at the top. And then right below that, I put Caleb Williams, honestly. I think he's a special, special prospect, and the Bears made the right call by trading away Justin Fields and getting Caleb Williams. I know a lot of people, the antics with him, people don't love. I personally don't care about them. I mean, I actually interviewed him last year for 20 minutes. I've seen interviews with him. All of his teammates that I've talked to and coaches, they all love him and adore him. So anyone that's close to Caleb Williams loves Caleb Williams. Anyone who doesn't really know the guy, they're the ones that are hating on him right now. So I think that should kind of tell you about his character. And yeah, I mean, he's an ultra competitive guy, man. I mean, don't let all the other stuff fool you. I mean, he is truly only cares about winning championships. I mean, on his phone screensaver is saying, he wants 8 Super Bowls. He wants to be the first pick of the draft. Like, this guy only cares about succeeding. So I think the Bears are getting a home run pick. If he fails in Chicago with how good of a situation they have, and how good he is, then maybe the Bears really are just cursed at quarterback, honestly. Because I truly think Caleb Williams is going to be a special talent in the NFL and be probably one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL pretty soon.
I did hear Josh Rosen also, after he got drafted, say something about wanting to be better than Tom Brady. So talk is fantastic, but as long as you see it on the tape out of Caleb Williams, I am happy. Garrett, talk to me about the Commanders.
Yeah, so high praise for Caleb Williams for sure. And I think he's a great quarterback, but I've figured he was going first. So, and as a Commanders guy, I've only cared about the second pick. So we're looking at the second pick. Commanders are on the board. What do? Do they trade that moment? Do they pick up a quarterback or someone else? Where do you think that second pick falls to?
Yeah, I think there's 2 options for them at number 2. They're sticking at number 2. They are not trading out of that pick. They need to get a franchise quarterback. So they're either going to take Jaden Daniels, the LSU quarterback who won the Heisman Trophy, or they're going to take Drake May. Now, what they will do and what I think they should do is 2 completely different answers. What I think will happen on Thursday is that they will take Jaden Daniels, the LSU quarterback. That seems to be all the smoke right now. I know there's some stories that came out about Jaden Daniels not really being happy with Washington after they hosted him, Drake May, and Jason McCarthy all at the same time on their visit. I don't think it's enough for him to pull an Eli and be like, oh, I'm not going there. So I think they will take Jaden Daniels. And I like Jaden Daniels a lot. Don't get me wrong. He's a great running threat. He was the best quarterback in college football this past year by a mile, in my opinion. He's really progressed nicely as a passer throughout his career. I personally, if I was the Commanders, I would take Drake May. I think he's got way better arm talent than Jaden Daniels. He really elevated the supporting cast at North Carolina, whereas Jaden Daniels, you look at it, played with 2 elite receivers and Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. Malik Nabers is going to be probably a top 5 pick in the draft. Brian Thomas Jr. is probably going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He had a great offensive line protecting him as well. Drake May never really had that. I mean, he had Josh Downs to throw to at one point, but other than that, it wasn't much at North Carolina to get excited about, and he still produced elite play for the Tar Heels. So he elevated the supporting cast around him. And also Drake May, both of his years as a starting quarterback, he was elite. And I don't really understand people saying, oh, he had a down year this year. He still was one of the best quarterbacks in college football, in my opinion. Just really the North Carolina supporting cast failed him. So Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, it took him until year 4 to really start getting it going. And then year 5, he had a Heisman Trophy winning season. So I think Drake May should be the pick at number 2. But I think the Commanders are going to take Jaden Daniels as of right now.
Oof. Well, it looks like from our man Garrett Tolley, he's big thumbs up with Drake May, thumbs down with Jaden Daniels. But Chase Green is here with us, and he's got a Titan question for you.
Yeah, so we know Alt is probably the automatic pick if he's there, right?
Yeah.
If you're the Titans. Okay. So after that, and you mentioned it on your pod earlier this week, and when you guys did the perfect pick, what happens if the scramble happens and the Chargers pick up Alt? Who do they go with after that?
That I think is a nightmare scenario for Tennessee, honestly, because I think that's like
Max, don't
I
give
know
me nightmares.
I've been talking about it for so much. Like everyone is just basically like penciling in Joe Alt to the Titans as like they are with Caleb Williams to the Bears. The difference is that nobody's in front of Chicago to take Caleb Williams. There's some teams in front of Tennessee. Now, fortunately, I don't think it's going to happen where he's taken beforehand. So I think they're going to be just fine. And that's one of the best fits, I think, in the draft. I mean, that's the biggest need is offensive tackle, and you get the best tackle prospect since Penei Sewell, in my opinion, and Joe Alt. So that I love that fit. And also Bill Callahan is Brian Callahan's father. And Brian Callahan is the new head coach. Bill Callahan is the legendary offensive line coach now with the Titans. You could bet that Bill Callahan, if Joe Alt's on the board, he's going to be in his son's ear being like, hey, go get me that guy. We need that guy. If he's gone, if somehow, say, the Giants or even Los Angeles takes him, then I think they get into a little bit of a scramble mode. Maybe they go with a receiver, honestly. Like I mean, I know they got Calvin Ridley there now. I know they got DeAndre Hopkins. Both those guys are a little bit older. So maybe they go with a guy like maybe Malik Nabers if he's there, Roma Dunze. I wouldn't hate that at all. Just getting another weapon for Will Levis. Or maybe they go with another tackle that they like as well. Maybe Talisa Fuanga, maybe Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who I really like as well. I think those are options as well. Or they could just trade down as well, which I wouldn't hate at all either. And maybe get one of those tackles at a later pick where I think it's more valuable and you get more picks out of it as well. So I think if Joe Alt's there, they're sprinting that card in. But otherwise, if he's not there, maybe they go with one of the top receivers. Maybe they go with one of the other top tackles. Or I definitely would not hate trading down either and getting more picks for a team that could use it right now. So I think Alt will be there, and I think he will be the pick. But it's definitely an interesting scenario because I think there is a non-zero chance that he's taken with the 5th or 6th pick in the draft, honestly.
Okay, well, that's good to know because I was a little worried. Alt just fits so perfectly.
Yeah.
Papa Callahan in this scenario was probably my favorite overall get. Like I think Brian's going to be good. I think that's going to be a situation coming from Cincy that's just going to work out. Hopeful, optimistic Titans fan here. I get it. But the other thing I was listening to too is you were talking about the defensive tackle being kind of a need for Tennessee. And with Jeff, you're like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. But now depth is a humongous issue for the Tennessee Titans. And Autry is not really the defensive tackle, but he played that interior role, and I think the defense is going to switch up a little bit. So, who in the defensive tackle realm? I got to slim it down for you. Let's say we get Alt. From rounds 2 through 5, where do you go from there on the defensive tackle front?
Yeah, I think there's a few options. Obviously, you mentioned that Autry now gone. I got Sebastian Joseph Day coming in, though, who's a solid player, but I got TK McClendon at the other one, and I think you can improve at that spot. So definitely not getting one in round 1. And then that means that Johnny Newton from Illinois and Byron Murphy from Texas, the top two guys, pretty much by a mile in this class. They're both going to be taken in the first round, in my opinion. So you can go a few ways after that, I think. I think Braden Fisk from Florida State is a guy I interviewed actually a month ago. Awesome guy. Had a great year at Florida State this past year. Had a great Senior Bowl and had a great combine as well. He's made a lot of money in the pre-draft process. So I wouldn't hate that in the second round if I'm Tennessee. Other guys, like he's going to go a little bit lower because of some off-field issues, but T'Vondre Sweat was arguably the best defensive tackle in college football this past year. He was fantastic as a run defender and actually adds more as a pass rusher than you'd think. Obviously, got to stay out of trouble. And also, you got to keep the conditioning down too, because that could be present some issues. He's like 360 pounds right now.
He big boy.
Yeah, big boy. But I like him a lot, man. I think he's going to fall on draft day because of the DUI that he had about a month ago. But I think he's a really, really good player if he can obviously stay on the field and stay out of trouble. So I think that'd be another option for them as well. It's a really good defensive tackle class overall, I think. And I think there's some good options there on day 2 and day 3 even that Tennessee could get. Chris Jenkins from Michigan, I really like as well. Leonard Taylor, if you want a day 3 guy. Leonard Taylor from Miami, I think has a lot of potential. I think he's a guy that you can get in the 4th round. He was a guy that I projected as a first-round pick entering the year, kind of at a down year, but he has some really, really intriguing stuff as a pass rusher. I would think about him a lot on day 3 if I'm Tennessee as well. So definitely some options outside of Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy that Tennessee fans can get excited about on day 2 and day 3.
Beautiful. Thank you, buddy. I needed that so much. I need to hear what was going to happen for us so I can lie to myself and say that we're going to somehow come out of the FC South despite what happened last year.
We'll see, man.
I'll pitch it over to the other South, to Malcolm Harris.
What's going on, Max? How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great, man. How's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Great.
Awesome. Well, I know Thursday, you and me kind of share this thing that this is like a national holiday in my household. I have loved the NFL draft for years. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, NFC South, and I think we are primed to take over this division. However, there is 2 gaping holes, and I want to see which one, if you're a GM, Terry Fontenot, would you try and fill first? It's obviously pass rush. You know, we have not had a sustainable pass rush in about 20 or so seasons, but also I look at this, Atlanta roster, and I don't see a true wide receiver 2. You have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. I love Mooney. I just don't think he's that guy. If you're at 8, what are you doing? Are you taking the best player available, like a receiver to bolster weapons for Kirk? Or are you taking Dallas Turner or, perhaps another defensive lineman?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you look at the betting odds, I actually haven't checked them in a second. I think if you look at the betting odds, though, Dallas Turner is the favorite to be the number 8 overall. Yeah, Latu. Holy, that's actually surprising. Latu's the new favorite to be the number 8 overall pick right now, followed by Dallas Turner and then Roma Dunze after that. Those are the 3 guys I'm really looking at. I would love Latu in Atlanta. I think he's the best edge in this draft, honestly. I've never seen a pass rusher as advanced as Latu as he is. I mean, his bag of pass rusher moves is unbelievable. He actually, this past year, he had a 96.3 PFF grade. That's the highest we've ever given out to a Power 5 player. Wow. And some of the guys right behind him were Blake Corum from last year, had like a 96.2 grade. And then Kyle Pitts in an unbelievable year he had for Florida. Chase Young and Quentin Williams in their last years too, who were unbelievable, all had 96.0 grade. So Latu had the best grade we've ever seen. So I think Latu at number 8 would be a great pick. Obviously some length issues and some medical history that hopefully gets cleared up because he had to medically retire at one point while he was at Washington. But I think he'd be a great pick for Atlanta. I wouldn't love Dallas Turner, honestly. I think that will be a reach at 8 for me. I don't think he's nearly as good as Latu or even Jared Verse in this class, and I certainly don't think he's worth a top 10 pick. So if they go with Dallas Turner, I wouldn't love that. But I would love Roma Dunze, man. If they go Roma Dunze, they might. I mean, my co-host Dalton and I are actually talking about it. If they get Roma Dunze, that might be the best offense in football, honestly, next year.
Ball.
Yeah, dude. I mean, look at it. You got obviously you got Drake London, who's I think a great player. Rome Odunze is a bona fide wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I think he's going to be a great player as well. Kyle Pitts could hopefully finally be unlocked with Kirk Cousins. He's got a really high ceiling. Kirk's a really solid quarterback. Bijan Robinson's like the best running back prospect that we've seen since maybe Adrian Peterson. And then one of the best offensive lines in football as well. So I think it's great. And actually a former PFF employee, Zach Robinson, is now the offensive coordinator for Atlanta. So he's going to have a lot of fun if they get Rome Odunze. So, man, if they get Rome Odunze, like I said, that could be the best offense in football. So I think Latu or Odunze, I think that's a great pick for Atlanta. I personally, though, I wouldn't love Dallas Turner if they took him at number 8 overall.
Well, I'm super happy that you said that because I'm all on Odunze. Unless Neighbors is there, then I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you a secondary question because a colleague, Joseph, just sat down. Is this a true or false statement? The best overall player in this draft, regardless of position, is Brock Bowers. Is that true or false?
It's true. It is true. I think he's the best football player in this draft, and I think he should be a top 10 pick, man. Honestly, I mean, I wrote an article breaking down why I think Brock Bowers is the greatest tight end college football has ever seen, and he's the 2-time John Mackey Award winner, which is given out to the best tight end in college football every year. He's the only 2-time winner of that award. He's a 3-time All-American in his only 3 years of college football. There's only been one other tight end who's ever accomplished that. That was like Ken McAfee, who played for Notre Dame back in the 70s. And Ken McAfee played 4 years of college football. So Brock Bowers, ever since he graduated high school, ever since he went to his senior prom, he's been the best tight end in college football, man. So I think Brock Bowers, there's some size concerns, sure. We mentioned Kyle Pitts before as one of the best tight end prospects ever. He might be better than Kyle Pitts as a prospect too. So he might even be the best tight end prospect we've ever seen. And tight end is a very valuable position, honestly. I don't think people understand how valuable it is. I mean, look at the last 4 teams standing in the conference championship weekend. You had Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, and then you had George Kittle and Sam Laporta. I mean, those are like the best tight ends in the NFL right now, basically. Absolutely. So I think tight end's a very valuable position. And even calling Brock Bowers a tight end is like a disservice. He's just an offensive weapon, man. He's almost like treated like a slot receiver. I think he's a truly, truly special talent, and he absolutely needs to be a top 10 pick in this draft. I think the Jets at number 10 should take him because, like I said, I think he is. If you take away positional value, I think he is pound for pound the best football player in the 2024 NFL draft.
Love it.
I'm just glad we were all able to hear that. What's going on, Max? I'm Joseph. If you couldn't tell from the way they were portraying that, I'm a huge Georgia fan. So I'm all on the Brock Bowers train. And now that we all know that Brock is the guy, we can move forward. But I don't have a favorite NFL team, so I'm not coming at this from a specific angle. I'm just a kind of general enjoyer of the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could both agree this is probably one of the deeper drafts for receivers in the past few years. So there's a couple of guys I wanted to ask you about as far as how you think they could translate and where they're going to go. Because we all know Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors are like the top 3 guys generally across the board. But actually PFF College put out today a tweet talking about ranking 4 wide receivers, Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, and Troy Franklin. So I wanted to start, how do you see Keon Coleman as kind of like, where do you think he'd go? Where do you think he'd fit? Who do you think he could improve? Because he's probably maybe number 4 or maybe number 5, depending on how you feel and what the team's needs is when they draft. So where do you think Keon Coleman fits well?
Dude, he's an enigma, man, honestly, because I don't think he is a top 5 receiver in this draft, honestly, but it's tough. He's like something that you can't quit him, man. You know, you see the unbelievable catches and you're like, I know it's not great for me. I don't feel great about him. I think he's a 2nd-round pick. I would take him probably, but his speed scares me. I mean, he does not separate well at all because he runs like a 4.6 40. Now, he is unbelievable in terms of going up and getting it, but we've seen that before where those guys that make highlight reel catches in college and just go up and sky over defensive backs, but they don't really separate well. We've seen it fail time and time again in the NFL. So I'm a little scarred by loving past college receivers who had his kind of game that I'm not as high on him right now. I still think he's worth a 2nd-round pick. But I'm a little bit lower on Keon Coleman right now than some people at least. So he's probably going to end up being a top 40 pick if I had to predict right now. But I'm just, like I said, I'm worried about his ability to separate at the next level, even though he makes some unbelievable plays. I've been scarred by way too many of those contested catch guys before that weren't able to separate in college and they just haven't worked out in the NFL. I'm a little bit worried that Keon Coleman might be following the same trend.
Understandable. It makes sense. And as far as we're pulling out biases, I'll go ahead and transition to Brock's teammate. How do you feel about Ladd?
How do you feel about Ladd McConkey? Because I've heard the Wes Welker and the Julian Edelman comparisons, and I'm like, nah, I think Ladd's a little bit different, man. So
Yeah.
How do you feel about Ladd as a receiver?
I think there are some other reasons why he's getting compared to those two players than what he actually is playing like, man. I think, dude, he's like the opposite of Keon Coleman. That dude, all he does is get open. And I think that's the most valuable thing a receiver can do is just get open. And Ladd McConkey, you make the argument he's like the best route runner maybe in this draft. He's got great speed as well, too, though. I mean, it's not like he's like, Wes Welker or Julian Edelman. He's got legitimate juice. He runs, I think he ran like a 4.39 40 at the NFL Combine as well. So I love Ladd McConkey. In fact, I would take him probably first round in this draft, and I think you could argue him up to at least maybe wide receiver 4. I might have him lower than that. I might have him like wide receiver 6 right now behind Brian Thomas Jr. and A.D. Mitchell. But I think his floor is super high, dude. And if you get him to a team like Kansas City or another team like that, I mean, that could be dangerous. So I like Ladd McConkey a lot. And like I said, he gets open, which is the number one thing I look for when I'm looking at wide receivers is how well do you get open? Ladd McConkey, pretty much better than almost anyone in this class, gets open at a really high rate. So I think Ladd McConkey is going to be a really good player in the NFL. And I'd be pretty surprised if he fails in the NFL just because he has such a valuable trait in his ability to get open and is a really good athlete too, honestly.
Sorry, Max. Playing a little bit of musical chairs on you here.
No, you're good. No worries.
Do you have another question, GT?
Yeah. So, Max, great analysis and everything that you've said so far. And the one thing that I have a question on, because of how deep PFF goes into grading these players, who's kind of our bracket buster? Who's our NFL draft bust that's going to, not bust, but like they get drafted out of nowhere and it just absolutely unravels everything we hope that will happen for all of our teams? Is there like a J.J. McCarthy who's going to really pop in there and just like go a lot higher than we think because he's been making a lot of noise? Or is there another player out there that you think that's going to surprise folks by getting drafted a little earlier than we expect?
Yeah, I think honestly, the answer for forever has been J.J. McCarthy. But I think at this point, we almost all anticipated it happening. I'm anticipating, again, I wouldn't do it, but I'm anticipating someone trading up to potentially number 5 overall. I think that's probably the most likely trade partner for whoever wants to get J.J. McCarthy, most likely the Vikings, I think. I'm anticipating that happening. So J.J. McCarthy is, I think, a pretty easy answer there as a guy who, again, not worth the top 5 pick in the draft, but I think he's going to go top 5. I think someone's going to pay and move mountains to go get J.J. McCarthy. So that's one guy I would say that I think will go pretty high in this draft. I'm trying to think of some other guys right now that could go pretty high. I think some corners could go higher than people think. I think you can see Quinyon Mitchell potentially sneak into the top 10, maybe even to Atlanta at number 8. I wouldn't love that, but I've heard some stuff about that. I think Latu could sneak into the top 10, and I would love that. I think a lot of people would be surprised by that just because they've always projected him as a mid to late first round pick. I wouldn't be surprised if a team falls in love with this tape, and they should, honestly, with how good he's been. So I think Latu is probably my answer right now because I think J.J. McCarthy is almost expected to go top 5 and at least top 10. Latu is probably a guy that not a lot of people are anticipating going top 10, but I think he's going to sneak in there, whether it be to Atlanta at number 8 or even Chicago at number 9. I think those are 2 landing spots for Latu. And like I said, a lot of people thought he was going to be a mid to late first round pick. I've always liked him a lot more than that, and it seems like some NFL teams are starting to catch up on that a little bit. So I think Latu could be a guy that surprises some people and sneaks into the top 10.
Love that, man. No, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so since we're kind of talking about some of our favorite college teams, I know Joseph was talking about his favorite college team. I want to talk about my favorite college team, the Tennessee Volunteers, and I want to ask you about my man, Jalen Wright. I know it's not a deep running back draft, and I know everybody's sort of devaluing running backs nowadays. I've been on the Jalen Wright train since I saw this man play in college. I want to get your thoughts on him as a prospect in this year's draft.
Dude, he is, I mean, one of the most important, like there's some positions where you can get away with not being an awesome athlete. Running back's really not one of them. And fortunately for Jalen Wright, he is one of the best athletes in this draft. So I like him a lot. I think he's a really, really good athlete. Like I said, he's a young player, doesn't have a lot of touches in his career, which is a good thing because that means he doesn't have a lot of mileage on his legs yet. Doesn't have great vision though. So that's why you can see some of the youth in his game. So I think he's got to improve in that. But I think he's a very versatile back and working a gap or zone scheme, honestly. And really good pass blocker too. I think that's something that goes underrated in his game is his pass blocking ability. I think Jalen Wright could be a number 1 back in the league, honestly. And right now, I anticipate him being probably a third-round pick, but I think he's one of the 5 best running backs in this draft for sure. And I think a team could draft him and develop it. If he develops his vision, I think it could be a starting running back in the league very easily because of how athletic he is. And he was very productive at Tennessee this past year too.
You're making a whole lot of the Tennessee Volunteer fans in this room very, very happy, except for one sitting behind the producer's chair right now, Malcolm Harris. Not obviously, he is a Tennessee fan. He wants to see Jalen Wright do well, but he's more of a Dylan Sampson guy than a Jalen Wright guy. I've always been more of a Jalen Wright guy. But anyways,
can I try to make him happy real quick with a take I have?
Make me not happy.
No, go ahead. All right. I think we want to talk about 2025 NFL draft. I think James Pierce Jr. could be the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft.
There we go. He's been on James Pierce Jr. for
crazy.
a very long time.
He's nuts, man. And I think it's a weaker quarterback class next year too. I think James Pierce Jr., if he develops some pass rush moves, I mean, dude, he has some freakish plays on tape. And I think he's a really good chance of being the number 1 overall pick next year. That guy is a freak athlete for sure.
All right, before I let Joseph get back in here, I got to ask you about my Green Bay Packers picking at number 25. I know they're one of the teams with the most draft picks in this year's draft. They started their sort of youth movement last year with Jordan Love, all those young wide receivers, the young tight ends. I'm a little, offended that you didn't mention my man Luke Musgrave or Tucker Kraft as some of the best tight ends in the league right now, but that's okay. The defense being what it is under new defensive coordinator. So tell me a little bit about the 25th pick, where Green Bay may go, what they need, and just having so many picks in this year's draft.
Dude, it's so hard predicting what Green Bay is going to do. I think out of any of the first-round teams, like looking at them, it's like they can go a number of ways, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. One way I think they could go is offensive line. I think they can get a starting caliber guard. And honestly, starting caliber offensive lineman would be a smart play. So maybe a guy like Graham Barton, who could play pretty much anywhere on the offensive line, that could be a pick that they go with. I think a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, who could play anywhere on the interior offensive line, I think he'd be a really good pick as well. They can go defensive line if they wanted to. I know they've kind of invested on that a lot recently, so I don't really anticipate them doing that. Another place I think they can go is probably corner/safety, which I think Cooper DeJean, a lot of people have been kind of penciling him in there if he's the number 25. If he's there at number 25, I love that fit. If he was there, I don't know if he will be, but I think he'd be a great fit in that defense who, could play a little safety if you absolutely need him to, but I think he's more of a corner in the NFL, and he could be a long-term corner for Green Bay as well. So it's tough predicting what they're going to do. I mean, they're kind of an unpredictable team almost every year in the NFL draft, but I think if I had to look at it right now, I'd say probably either offensive line or maybe they add a guy like Cooper DeJean at the back end of their defense. Those are probably the 2 spots I'd look at for Green Bay in the first round.
Max, it's like you read my mind, man. I was gonna transition into hearing about DBs because I wanted to get your thoughts on. Obviously, Cooper DeJean is a baller, but I wanted to get your thoughts on who are some potential sleepers at the cornerback position, because I know Cooper DeJean's rated to be the first cornerback off the board. If maybe him, not him, then Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, and then of course there's Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold from Bama. So who do you think is somebody that's kind of lower in the ranks, maybe a late second-round cornerback that could get picked up and end up having a big impact on the team that they go to?
Ooh, good question. I think a guy, Mike Samerstill from Michigan, is a guy I love. I mean, he's just a damn good football player. He actually played receiver at Michigan before moving to corner. He's probably the best slot corner in this draft, honestly. He's just, like I said, he's an unbelievable football player. So I really like him. Renardo Green is another guy I really like from Florida State. I think he might even be available in the 4th round. He might even be a day 3 pick. He might be the best man corner in this draft, honestly. Like, he is a terrific man coverage corner. So I think he's a guy that could be really good. And I know he's not a sleeper because, like you already mentioned him with the top corners. Kool-Aid McKinstry for me is my number 1 corner in this draft. I think it's kind of crazy how people are lower on him than Terrion Arnold, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, even Nate Wiggins seems to be higher on boards right now. I know DeJean's not an elite athlete, and all those guys I just mentioned are elite athletes, but McKinstry's a above average athlete. And also, he's been like the best corner in college football in each of the last 2 years. I mean, he's been absolutely locked down for Alabama. His tape's boring because quarterbacks refuse to throw to his side of the field. And quite frankly, that's the only reason why Terrion Arnold is where he is right now as a projected top 15 pick, is because he got so many targets this past year because quarterbacks would refuse to look McKinstry's way. So I think we're kind of just forgetting about McKinstry just because he didn't have that many targets when that's really the job of a corner, is to just not get thrown at because you're covering your receiver so well. I think McKinstry is still the best corner in this draft. So he's not a sleeper because he's going to be a top 25 pick probably. But I think he is the number one corner in this draft, and he's most likely going to be the fifth cornerback taken on Thursday. So I think Kool-Aid McKinstry, not a sleeper, but definitely a guy that deserves a lot more love than he's getting right now.
Understandable. Yeah, I've watched a lot of Kool-Aid. Obviously, as a Georgia fan, had to play against Kool-Aid watch the Dogs play against Kool-Aid a couple of times. So I get where the hype is for him. There is somebody that you did mention, Mike Sanderstill, that I think he was my choice for this is an under the radar cornerback. Although he was probably the second best cornerback on his team. I know Will Johnson's not eligible this year. We'll save that for next year. But as far as DBs go, are there any safeties that you like?
Oh man, it's quite frankly, it's not a great safety class this year. There's a lot of guys that are intriguing, but I would say the consensus top safety and the guy that I like the most is Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. If you want a surprise first round pick, that could be him. I think there's a chance, maybe even a team like Green Bay takes a guy like Tyler Nubin in the first round. I wouldn't be shocked by it. If Cooper DeJean's not there, I would not be shocked if he sneaks into the first round. I like him a lot. He's a really unbelievable player for Minnesota, both as a run defender and in coverage. Has some great plays on the ball as well. I like him a lot. Javon Bullard from Georgia is another guy I really like as well. He's probably the number 2 safety, I think, off the board. I think he's great because he could play safety. He could play in the slot, most likely in the slot long term. He's a great slot defender. He's another guy that I like a lot as well. It's just after that, man, it's you kind of getting. It's not great, honestly. And I think those are the top 2 guys I say are probably going to be second round picks. Everyone else is going to go third round or later. It's a very weak safety draft this year. Next year's safety draft is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be one of the best positions, one of the best safety classes I can remember. And even the year after, you look at Caleb Downs, Dylan Thieneman from Purdue, they're going to be unbelievable in 2026 as well. This year's safety class is not that strong, but I do like Tyler Nubin and Javon Bullard enough to potentially take them in the second round of this draft.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned next year because my boy Malachi Starks is coming out.
Right.
And he's dude, he's a stud.
He's the number 1 safety next year, I think.
He's insane to watch. But and Caleb Downs obviously is, but that's another 2 years away. I'm glad you phrased that way. I was I didn't want to just bring out all my Georgia bias and ask about Georgia players, but you mentioned Javon Bullard, and I was like, I was hoping we could find a way to throw him in there. So
well done, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Well done. You got another one?
I'm good, man.
Okay, well, I got another one for you. I'm curious about just NFL teams in this draft. I know there's always shakers and movers, and I know it's difficult sometimes to predict which teams will move up, which teams will move down. But if you had to pinpoint one or two or a couple of teams that you anticipate moving up or down in this draft and that you think maybe should, tell me who they would be and why.
Okay, I think the team – so like I said, there's going to be someone that moves up for a quarterback. And I think the team is going to do it is Minnesota because they have the number 11 pick in this draft. They have the number 23 overall pick in this draft. Kevin O'Connell, I saw this, he's at church recently, and he was talking about how they're looking at moving up. And everyone kind of it's not even smoke anymore. It's fire that Minnesota is looking to move up. They traded for the number 23 overall pick back in March. And that to me wasn't saying, oh, we want to get 2 first round picks this year. No, that was saying, no, we want to get ammo to move up in this draft and get into the top 3 potentially, if not top 5. I think there's a chance they try to get up to number 3 with New England. I think there's a chance New England's open to trading down. I think New England kind of knows, hey, even if we take a rookie quarterback, we're still a long ways away from being a good football team, and we might even ruin the development of a rookie quarterback with how bad, and their offense is terrible, honestly. Like I said before, Chicago is a great situation to walk into. Yeah. I feel bad for whatever rookie quarterback walks into New England right now. It is not a pretty sight at all. So there's a chance that New England says, hey, we just need talent. Let's move back in the draft. Maybe start Jacoby for a year. Maybe take a quarterback later on, maybe a Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. But I don't know if we want to stick here at 3 and take Drake May. Maybe let's move back, get some more picks, and get some talent on offense, honestly, because they need that. So I think there's a chance that Minnesota moves up to number 3 to get Drake May. I think they really like Drake May. And then I think there's a chance if they can't do it, they'd move up to number 5 with Los Angeles and take J.J. McCarthy that way. And I think Los Angeles makes the most sense to me for a few reasons. One, Los Angeles, I think, Jim Harbaugh specifically wants to build the roster he wants. As you saw, they traded away Keenan Allen. They cut Mike Williams. They let Austin Eckler walk. They don't care about the past teams at all. Like Jim Harbaugh's clearly saying, hey, I'm building this team the way I want to do it. So I think there's a chance that they want to move back in the draft. That way they can get more premium talent, like the number 11 pick and number 23 pick. And that way he could build the team he sees fit. And also, kind of a conspiracy theory, it won't really matter as much, but that way Jim Harbaugh could also be the guy as one last tip of the cap to his former college quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, saying, hey, I'm the one that's going to make you a top 5 pick. I'm the one that's sending you to an unreal situation. Like if there's any situation better than Chicago for a rookie quarterback to walk into, it's Minnesota. Minnesota's got a great offense. They have with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, great O-line as well with 2 great tackles. And then Kevin O'Connell, head coach, is one of the smartest offensive minds in the sport right now, I think. That is a great situation for a rookie quarterback to walk into. So I think that could be one last thing to Jim Harbaugh before they go the separate ways in the NFL, kind of, helping out his former college quarterback that he loves and adores, by the way, one last time. So I think Minnesota going to 5 with LA is the most likely scenario. I think there's a chance Buffalo might move up. Their receiver room is bare right now. Maybe they say, hey, we got to get one of these top receivers in the draft. Can they move up to the top 10 to get Rome Odunze? Probably not, because it's going to take a king's ransom to go from 28 into the top 10. But maybe they try to do it. Maybe they try to move up to get Brian Thomas Jr. or Adonai Mitchell, whoever they prefer. Even though I think a really good receiver will be there at 28, maybe they really like one of the guys. So maybe they try to move up to the early 20s to get a receiver. That's another team, I think. I'd probably say those are teams right now. Maybe even Denver. Maybe Sean Payton gets desperate and wants to jump Minnesota in the trade talk. Maybe Denver's a team that tries to move up to get a quarterback as well. So I think New England and Los Angeles are the teams I'm looking at as in terms of trading back that they might do. And the teams that are trading up, I think Minnesota, maybe Denver, then maybe even Buffalo to get a receiver. I think those are the teams I'm looking at as I'm eyeing right now as potential trade partners on Thursday night.
So basically what you're telling me is in the very near future, the NFC North could be very, very competitive. Like it used to be just the Packers and maybe the Vikings. The Lions just got to an NFC Championship game. The Bears are potentially coming if they could ever figure it out. And then if Minnesota can find a quarterback, this might be a very difficult and competitive division where it might be one of the best in the NFL in short order.
I think it probably is the best in the NFL if that happens. I think, you look at it right now, I think Detroit is probably the second best team in the NFC heading into next year behind San Francisco, I'd probably say. And then you got Green Bay, who just had an unreal season and made a run to the divisional round and almost beat the 49ers in the divisional round. They're a really good team as well. A really young team that I like a lot. I love Jordan Love. And then, like I said, like Caleb Williams, and I think the Bears could immediately be a playoff team, go 9-8, 10-7. I think that's definitely in the cards next year with Caleb Williams. I think they could be a playoff team. And then I think Minnesota has everything around them. Now, I'm not as high on J.J. McCarthy, so I'm not ready to be like, oh, they're going to be just as good as they were with Kirk. But I think there's a chance that he could hit his ceiling and be a really, really talented player. Like I said, he's in a great spot to hit his ceiling. I think if Minnesota if it doesn't work out with J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota, I don't think it's Minnesota's fault. I think it's more on J.J. McCarthy than that, because I think the situation he's walking into is excellent. And I can't remember a rookie quarterback going into a better situation than what Minnesota's got right now. So, yeah, I think the NFC North, I think it could be the best division of football next year. I think it's a really good chance. I think you could see probably 3 playoff teams, if not maybe even all 4, honestly, if it really gets crazy. I know the scheduling probably won't let it happen that way, but 4 at least playoff caliber teams. I don't think there's really going to be a terrible team in the division next year.
All right, Max, last one for you. I know we've taken up enough of your time here. You've waited for us. You've been super patient. Joseph's going to finish us off. What you got?
It was perfect, man. You brought up J.J. McCarthy, and personally, I feel like J.J. McCarthy should have stayed at Michigan one more year before coming out. That's just how I feel. I know not everybody's going to feel that way. But I wanted to get your thoughts on J.J. versus Bo Nix. And if you were the Vikings GM, who are you going to pick? Because in my head, Bo Nix and J.J. are very comparable, but Bo's just played more football.
Yeah, I'd even throw Michael Penix Jr. in that mix too, man. I think to me, the tiers of quarterbacks in this draft, it goes tier 1, Caleb Williams, nobody even close to him. Tier 2, I put Drake May. Right below that in tier 3, I put Jaden Daniels. And then tier 4, I put J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. Probably in that order too. I'm a little worried about JJ McCarthy. I wouldn't hate him returning to Michigan. Now, Jim Harbaugh leaving, I think kind of put the nail in the coffin as to him being like, all right, I'm definitely leaving. And also, he's going to be, like I said, he's going to be a top 5 pick. It's hard for any top 5 pick to be like, oh, no, I'll stay another year. You don't want to risk injury. You don't want to risk being terrible and moving way down the draft board. Like it makes sense for him to leave. But in terms of his development, yeah, it would have made sense for him to stay another year because that way he probably would have been carrying the offense next year for Michigan. So I'm a little worried because, like you said, he's never carried the offense at Michigan. Like he's just been a really good quarterback when he's given the opportunity. The issue isn't quality with JJ McCarthy. He's shown that he's got a very, very high quality passer. The issue is quantity. He's just, quite frankly, if he threw 8 passes against Penn State, and that was a close game the entire game. He didn't throw a single pass in the second half either. So I just think it's tough for me to be like, oh, we're going to take a top 5 pick on this guy and hand him the keys to the offense when he just hasn't shown that much. I'd still take him over Penix and Nix. I think Nix kind of scares me because I think Nix is just a kind of a game manager type of quarterback. I think he's more talented than Mac Jones, but I think he's kind of like that realm where it's just like kind of just ran the offense at a really high level, don't get me wrong, but it really was him just kind of playing point guard in that offense. So I think, again, he's more talented than Mac Jones. He's probably going to have a better career, but I think that kind of mold is what I see Bo Nix in. And then I like Michael Penix Jr. I think he's got a chance to be a quality starter too. Not a top 10 quarterback by any means, but maybe like a Kirk Cousins-esque type quarterback, like in terms of his talent. So I think those are 2 guys I like a lot too. I think JJ's got a higher ceiling than either of those guys, which is why I'd probably take him above them. But I do think if you had him in any order, those 3, I would not be I wouldn't be upset at it because I think they are very, very comparable. But yeah, I take JJ McCarthy, but like I said, I think it's close enough with Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. that if I'm Minnesota, I don't think it's worth trading up to the top 5 and giving up your second first-round pick. I think it's maybe worth just sticking at 11 or even 23 and taking either Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. I think that could be more worth it than trading away a lot of assets just to move up to get a guy that's almost just as good as Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., in my opinion.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Thank you for the insight, obviously, Max. And before we let you go, let's plug our friends over at PFF one more time. PFF's mock draft simulator. Be sure to head over to pff.com/mock to use PFF's mock draft simulator. The draft is on Thursday, this coming Thursday, so don't miss it. You can make trades, earn rewards, and choose your favorite prospects in the 2024 NFL draft by using PFF's mock draft simulator at pff.com/mock. You can find him on Twitter at MaxChadwickCFB. He is the Pro Football Focus college football analyst, co-host of the PFF College Football Show as well. Max, really appreciate the time, my man. We took up plenty of it tonight here on a Sunday, which will air on a Monday, but we really appreciate you jumping on here with us on Chat It Up Sports.
Dude, of course, man. I had a great time with you guys. Yeah, don't worry about it at all. Yeah, it was an awesome time. Anytime you want to do it again, let me know.
Yeah, we absolutely will. After the draft, we should have you on and kind of like break it all down.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, guys.